He is shocking everyone as Bucks prospect AJ Green has impressed coaches throughout the offseason as Doc Rivers came out and said some very interesting things about the prospect. We're going to break that down as well as discuss Damian Lillard. He came out and revealed the truth behind getting traded to the Bucks. So stay tuned for all that in this episode. But before we do, if you're a part of the 86% who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're getting very close now to 1,000 subscribers, and this is the place to be for daily Bucks content. But we have a lot to go over today, specifically regarding AJ Green. Now, obviously, the Bucks made a lot of offseason acquisitions, but AJ Green is a guy that hasn't been talked about too much by Bucks fans. But Doc Rivers made it a point to come out and speak about AJ Green, about his potential role going forward, his increased role, and what his work looked like in the offseason to make it to where he could really be bound for a spot upcoming. So you can see this here. Doc Rivers praises Bucks youngster, setting the stage for an increased role, as Doc Rivers clearly likes what he sees. And this is, of course, talking about undrafted prospect AJ Green. So we know that media day started a couple days ago, and this is where we got a lot of information about, obviously not just AJ Green, but a bunch of players. But it's clear that the veteran-oriented Bucks need to implement youth into the fold this upcoming season, which we all agree with. And that is why Doc Rivers let it be known that the young players have caught their eye and his eye over the past month, especially third-year wing AJ Green. He said, a quote, "I think AJ Green had an amazing summer. You didn't see him much, but we did. I thought he had an amazing summer." And we'll get into his stats and some more quotes as well here. But obviously, we're talking about a lot of different players with the Milwaukee Bucks. They added Taurean Prince, they added Gary Trent Jr., they added a lot of veterans. They still have guys like Pat Connaughton, and I know a lot of Bucks fans aren't a fan of him, but they have a lot of veteran guys that they added. They haven't been adding many youngsters. Now, they obviously traded some first in the Damian Lillard trade. They don't have a lot of future assets to acquire young talent, which is why drafting is going to be so important, or in this case, signing, because obviously AJ Green was unsigned, or undrafted, sorry, and unsigned when they acquired him. But looking into what he can offer the Bucks, just some youth, some athleticism. And again, the Bucks aren't a super young team by any means. They're trying to win right now. We know that they fired their coach, Adrian Griffin, last year. They brought in a veteran like Doc Rivers, and their plan right now, like we all know, is to win with Damian Lillard. Dame's not getting any younger, and Giannis obviously is in his prime right now. But when you're thinking about a lot of the young guys, it's pretty clear to me that they need to go ahead and play some of the young guys more. We saw it last year. They didn't give the young guys too many opportunities. And granted, they weren't performing phenomenally, but you're looking at AJ Green. So you can see here, it starts with AJ Green making his presence felt in training camp. Basically, whether or not AJ Green gets a big role right now is going to depend a lot on the preseason, a lot on training camp that started a couple days ago. Because if he goes out there, and like the article basically alludes to, if he goes out and he plays well in the practices, he does really well in scrimmages. Obviously, the biggest turning point for him and whether or not he's going to get into games is how he performs behind the scenes, because until preseason starts, we're not going to be seeing too much from the training camp. We're not going to be seeing too many of the practices, but Doc Rivers does. He also sees the offseason work that a lot of these guys do, which is why he went out and said, you guys don't see a lot of it, but we do. AJ Green was one of the more impressive players. And that, I mean, it says a lot, because he didn't have to go out and praise AJ Green. He could have praised any of the current veterans, any of the younger guys, their first round pick. Like, he could have praised tons of these players, but he went out of his way to praise AJ Green, because ultimately, clearly, he caught Doc Rivers' eye. Now, we rewind back to last season, and among the limited young players and the minutes that the young players got, we know that AJ Green had a very, not impressive year necessarily, but a very solid year. And once Doc Rivers took over, it was pretty clear, like the article says, AJ Green was one that Doc Rivers trusted a decent bit, and I think that could even increase, especially after this comment. Now, he's not going to go out and play 25, 30 minutes a game, but I think that among the young players that they have in a season where Doc Rivers needs to win, the Bucks need to win, if we take anything into account from last year, it seems that Doc Rivers will probably trust AJ Green maybe a bit more this year and have a more elevated role. And if you're unfamiliar with him, again, he was undrafted a couple years ago. They ultimately signed him after the draft, and he was one of the hidden gems for the Milwaukee Bucks in last year. And again, for a guy who's undrafted, you can't really expect too much, but what he's been able to do is very impressive. You think about the year, he's only 20, he's entering his age 25 season now. He put up 4 points a game, and then in 2023, which was last season, he obviously put up 4 points a game again, but it's not really about the points at this point. Doc Rivers, and a bit of AJ Griffin, but mainly Doc Rivers trusted him for 56 games last year, which is 21 more than he played in his rookie campaign. And you're looking at it here, 11 minutes a game. And again, he's not going to be a guy who goes out and plays 20, 25 minutes a game, but if he can elevate now and maybe play 15 to 20 minutes a game, depending on how everybody else is doing, or maybe if injuries happen, he can be a solid 3-and-D wing at this point. Especially, you look at last year, he shot 40% from three. In his rookie year, he shot 41% from three. If he can just go in as a young player, provide some energy, provide some defense, knock down threes, especially if he did a lot of work in the offseason, like Doc Rivers alludes to, there is a world where he actually has a pretty prominent role in this team just as a backup and a guy who can really step up to the dish when needed. And you look at the depth chart here, obviously we know that Chris Middleton is dealing with an injury. He should be fine, but AJ Green could be the third string point guard. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do with him. Obviously, they signed DeLon Wright as well, which might hinder AJ's abilities to get a lot of minutes. But there's also a world where DeLon Wright goes out and he doesn't have a great year. He's coming off of an okay year with the Miami Heat. He is a more veteran guy. But when you're looking at AJ Green, being the backup one, he was trusted last year to do that from time to time. Now, whether they want to play him at the one, whether they want to play him at the two, like last year, obviously he played a good bit of shooting guard, but if they want to play him as the backup point guard or the third string point guard, it can definitely be done depending what happens with Pat Connaughton. You see this here, obviously they have AJ Green as the third string or the fourth string backup shooting guard, but there's a world and there's been trade rumors escalating surrounding Pat Connaughton, and Connaughton, quite frankly, had a pretty rough year and a brutal playoff. So there is a world where he does ultimately play the backup point guard spot. He can play the shooting guard, and if he can knock down threes, that's going to be the most important thing for him going forward. It's going to be very interesting to see what they do with him. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on that, and do you want to see AJ Green play a more prominent role this upcoming year? We also have some interesting news as Damian Lillard came out and revealed some details about being traded to what was a surprise team at the time. We know that at the time of the trade, the Bucks weren't really one of the teams that were super heavily favored to land Dame. And he recently went on Marshawn Lynch's podcast and talked about being traded to the Bucks. Of course, we remember that he requested a trade to Miami. Most people thought that it was all but imminent that he gets traded to the Heat. But he spoke out saying, I'm in a great situation, but when I had my mind thinking I was going, one place, and I ended up going somewhere else, it changed that experience for me. I thought I had done everything right. I had performed. I know as a law-abiding citizen, I only brought good things, so I felt like I have some favor in this situation, and I didn't. Nobody owe me nothing. It went how it went. So ultimately, he was set. His mind was set on going to the Miami Heat. He gave Portland his loyalty for many years, figured they'd return it. They ultimately definitely did not. But his first season with the Bucks was decent. We know this. I've been speaking about this on the channel a bunch. He had a decent year. I mean, we're talking about he still put up 24 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds. His efficiency was a bit lower than usual, but the injuries is what ultimately caused him and the Bucks to not make any noise in the playoffs. And that's hopefully going to change this year with the new additions of Gary Trent, Torian Prince, guys stepping up like AJ Green. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Do you want to see, again, AJ Green play a more prominent role this season? And what do you think is going to happen with the rest of the team? Let me know. See you guys tomorrow.